Before we start today's video, I thought I would take the opportunity to shill a stream I'm doing tonight at 9:30 PM GMT on the Cthulhu-Kin and Friends show. It will be the first Prime Minister's questions of this parliamentary session. Turns out recess is over this week, not next week. I'm still intending on doing political recaps with Trups, we just need to find a day and a time where it's more suitable. Now the subject of today's video comes from the Advertiser in Adelaide, where childcare workers strike in Adelaide in campaign for better wages. Now I am all for giving childcare workers more money if they're doing such a bang-up job. There are a number of fields in care where in this country, my country certainly, you're paid minimum wage and you're overworked. And that's not fair, considering the nature of your job, which is physically and mentally very demanding. Certainly with children, you could argue more so. It's very subjective though. I've seen challenging adults and mentally disabled elderly who are incredibly difficult to handle. But the reasoning in this article given for why childcare workers should be paid more money is the part I'm going to take real issue with, and we will get to it soon enough. More than 50 childcare workers across 4 Adelaide centres have today walked off their jobs in what could signal the beginning of more industrial action in a targeted campaign for better wages. If the 4 centres in question had enough notice, I'm sure they were able to get agency workers in to cover and fill the gap while they walked off and protested. Question: do workers in Australia have access to unions, and do unions have much leverage in Australia? I don't actually know the answer to that, so I would like to know in the comments below, because I think unions, they do serve a purpose. In this country, they serve a purpose of scaremongering, because that's what they're doing right now in Prime Minister's questions, where Brexit is bad, we need to stay in the customs union and the single market. Right. I'm not getting into that, and it's completely off the subject of this video, so let's get back into it. The Lura Community Children's Centre, Modbury Children Community Centre, Brompton Children's Centre and Hillbank Community Children's Centre closed at 3:20 PM with families forced to pick up their children early. Oh wow, it's a protest that wasn't for a whole day, it was like the end of day. Wow. That's quite pathetic. It is part of an Australia-wide protest fighting against gender pay imbalance. Well, did other community children's centres across Australia do it at the same time on the same day? If they had, it might have been a bit more noticeable. If it was solely in Adelaide, I don't think it was as effective as it could have been. Might I recommend you rally your community to the purpose at hand? Assistant Director at the Hillbank Centre, Rebecca Stills, said early childhood educators were significantly underpaid. There is a stigma that childcare workers are babysitters, but we are all highly qualified. So now we start to get to the crux of the problem. The perceived entitlement to more money because of how qualified you are. This is not something I totally agree with. I understand that in some cases, the more qualified you are, the more value there is in you, but that is entirely dependent on the field you work in. If you work in finance and you are one of the most highly qualified people out there, you are going to be able to be paid more than someone who is not as highly qualified. And yes, I'm aware of equal pay for equal work, but it is entirely subjective and context-based. In certain finance fields, it's not the same job. In care, I know people who have degree-level qualifications who earn minimum wage for it, and I tend to think they deserve more pay, but not because of the qualifications, but because of the nature of their job. Unfortunately, they don't get paid it. No matter how many times governments say they want to help, they don't. And I don't think that's going to change much in Australia just yet. Especially if you're going to use the excuse of, my qualifications are worth lots of money, cause totes lots of money. Now give me shekels, cause I'm willing to violate my contract to get more money. If any of you have a full-time job with them and you breach your contract, you should be brought up on disciplinary charges. It is remarkably unprofessional to go about getting additional pay through essentially blackmailing and not completing your job. Regardless of how qualified or how good you are showing yourself to be remarkably unprofessional and unemployable at best. And I don't believe completing what could be considered 3/4 of a day and then deciding to simply fuck off afterwards is in any way constructive, regardless of the reasons. Mrs. Stiles said childcare workers, of which 97% were women, needed a minimum Certificate 3 education level through TAFE, and that wages that attracted was $20.61 an hour. She said in comparison, here comes the fallacy, a male-dominated field, for example metal fitter and machinist, an equivalent certificate level 3 attracted a wage of about $38 an hour. This is one of the shittest comparisons I've seen in quite some time, and it is a fallacy. You are not entitled to the same amount of money for the same work. They are different industries, there's different money involved. One is more mentally demanding, one is more physically demanding, and at this present time, physically demanding jobs pay really well. I say this from experience. My sisters work in care. I earn more than twice an hour what they earn, doing more physically demanding work. It's just a fact of life. There is more money in it. Except for the finance part. That's something special. Now I could say to you, if you really want to do more, if you really want more money, change profession. If your qualification is the equivalence, then screw it, just cross that line. But you won't. You believe you're entitled to more money. I don't know what the cost of living is in Adelaide, so I don't know if that's good money in the first place. But I argue, this comparison does not make your point any more concrete. I generally believe that people who work in care do deserve to be paid more, but I do not believe the way you go about it is by cutting your day by 25%, breaching your contract, pouting like children, the ones you're supposedly caring for, and comparing your qualification to that of a very physically demanding field and expecting a result. I would point out now, just to be clear, people who work in more physically demanding fields, their bodies deteriorate at a high rate. They are also a high risk for injuries, and as they get older, they're not going to be able to recover from them as easily, so for the most part, a number of them will retire earlier. I'm not re-recording that. Stupid dog. Now, I am well aware a number of people are going to say, yes, but that again, with the whole injuries as you get older, is subjective because it is something that occurs in other fields as well, therefore, this argument's not valid. Yeah, I know. Thank you for telling me in advance. The staff walked off at 3:20 p.m, which represents the time that women in Australia effectively start working for free as a result of the gender pay imbalance. Is this a new term for the gender pay gap? You're not working for free. You are paid by contract to work a certain number of hours for a certain amount of money. You have then decided, because you're fucking idiots, that your pay isn't enough. Therefore, you have skewed it and shifted it, moved the goalpost to make it seem as if you're not being paid fairly. And I understand this is a very important industry. I really do. But you are now deciding you deserve more money and you've created a bunch of fallacies and reasons that aren't reasons, they're fake reasons at best, for why you should be paid more money. I personally would not hire anyone that walked off their job at that time if that was the reason they decided to do it. Because it is not a good reason at all. It is unprofessional beyond belief. Now I really do hope, you morons that walked away with the whole equal pay for equal qualifications, I hope all of you are suspended. I really do. And before anyone says it, yes, I'm well aware, that means then they'd have to hire agency workers to fill the gap or possibly hire new people. Do it. Do it so you get people who understand they are there to earn a specific amount of money that, while not as much as someone who works in a very physically demanding job but has an equal qualification to that person, level-wise, not qualification, actual qualification-wise, yeah, I don't want them people working. I wouldn't want that kind of person to work near children knowing they'll phone it in. And the answers you give, you're appealing to emotion, appealing to qualification fallacy? Is that what it is now? Is that even a fallacy to begin with? Oh, that's new. I haven't seen that before. It is quite special. I keenly await someone to do a response video to me now. I know who you are. Try not to reply to your own comments with a separate account this time, okay? Okay. Anyway, I hope everyone has a lovely Thursday and subsequent weekend. Oh, and I'll be streaming tomorrow on my game channel, 9 o'clock PM GMT. Join me there as well. And thank you all for listening.
Oh, goddowns.
In your ass.
Imagine my shock